Hey everybody, this is the week of February the 2nd. In our preschool area, we are going to be on Unit 3, Session 1. And so this week our story is about how Ruth chose to help Naomi. So Naomi was a woman who was married and she had two sons, and those sons were also married. So remember, in this culture, that is a full life. That is something that is basically everyone's dream. Well, through terrible circumstances, her husband and both of her sons die. And so at the beginning of the book of Ruth, we see this happen. And Naomi tells her daughter-in-laws, go back to your families. Now, for us, that can kind of seem kind of weird. But I want you to remember that a woman in this day and age was extremely vulnerable if she did not have a family around her, specifically men. She was highly taken advantage of. She couldn't own property. She couldn't buy and sell things. Basically, she was abandoned in that culture. And so she recognizes that is kind of her life now, this kind of life of destitute, depending on other people, and she doesn't want that for her daughter-in-law. So she says, you know what, you go back to where it's comfortable. And one of her daughter-in-laws chooses to, goes with her full blessing. There's no bad blood or anything like that. But Ruth doesn't. And Ruth says, no, you are my family. Where you go, I will go. Where you eat, I will eat. Where you stay, I will stay. Your God will be my God. And so they go back to the land of Naomi's family and kind of start over. And so Ruth makes this incredible choice to give up the comforts of her life, because she's a young woman. She could have easily left Naomi, went back, remarried, started a new family, went back to her father's house, been under the umbrella of his protection. But she chooses to humble herself and think less of herself and to protect and become this family unit with Naomi. They go back, and Ruth begins to go out to the fields and glean the extra leftovers from wheat. Now, if you'll remember way back in the earlier when the law is given to the Israelites, that was one of the laws that God had established for his people, that they would leave a certain percentage or a certain part of the field when they harvested, so that it would take care of widows, orphans, people who were traveling, that would provide for people who were less fortunate than themselves. So Boaz owns this field, and he does that. He is a godly man, and he has this part of his field that he has left. Ruth goes and picks up those leftovers. Well, he sees her, and he who is that? She's beautiful. Her countenance is beautiful. And he begins to notice her. Well, through this interaction, they come to find out that they are actually related. And they had a practice where if there was a unwed orphan, specifically a widow, not an orphan, a widow, that they would have the closest person who's related come and bring them into their family so that they could continue that family lineage, so that woman wouldn't be left alone. So that property that maybe her husband had owned would become a part of that. So it would provide for her and any children that they had. And so Boaz decides he's going to do this. Well, he finds out there's somebody else who's closer. So he goes to them and does the right thing, gives them a chance to do that. And that other person says, no, I'm not interested. Like, it's too much. I don't want to do that. So then he goes and he marries Ruth. And they have a son, Obed, and then they have a son, David. Or Jesse, and then David. So she is David's great grandmother. And what a beautiful picture. She's someone who was a foreigner. She's someone who was in a desperate, isolated position, kind of overlooked by the world. But she becomes part of this incredible lineage of heroes of the faith, because she herself practiced that obedience and that selflessness. You know, it reminds me a lot of what Jared was talking about on Sunday about how when we come to know Christ, that there's a change in heart, there's a change in our mind, and there's a change in our identity. And that is what had happened with Ruth. And that's how we see it played out. That's how she's able to make these choices to honor and love Naomi, even when it was really hard. So I know that's a lot of information that you may not reveal all of that to your preschoolers, but as you study and prepare, I hope that softens your heart so that you can communicate to them what a sacrifice she made and how that really honored God, that she chose to help her. So in your curriculum, there are some examples of some games and things for you to do together. Pretend like you're going on a trip and travel. You know, how they traveled from one place to another. The Bible verse that we're going to focus on memorizing is Galatians 5:13. And that says, help one another in love. So in your class, as you see that, really this unit, especially this week, we're going to focus on praising that and bringing that up. Oh, I love how you took turns and you let them go first. That's showing each other love. Thank you for helping them clean up. You helped them in love. Our unit verse, the big overarching verse for our unit, comes from Deuteronomy 6:5. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart. And that is really what we're focusing on with our preschoolers, that they learn, even as little as they are, to love God with their whole heart. So I just want you to know how much I think so highly of you guys and how grateful I am for you that you take this time to teach these really important life lessons to some of the youngest people in our church. So I pray that God blesses you this week in your study. Thanks for hanging with me. I know this week was a little bit longer than what we usually do, but it's such a great story and it really spoke to my heart this week as I was preparing, and I hope it does yours as well. So have a wonderful week. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday.